Episode 22 of College Hockey Mouth, the College Hockey South podcast. We are happy to bring you another edition here. Before we start this one, we'd like to bring awareness to the hazardous conditions going on around the eastern part of the United States. Hope everyone's staying warm and safe out there. Some cancellations are happening around games, inevitable with the amount of ice and snow we're seeing in places that aren't used to it. So with all of the safety concerns, be sure to take an extra hour or two to get what your team needs this weekend and err on the side of caution. We hope everybody gets to their locations, games or not, in a manner. But we've got a great interview coming up for today's episode. This one is with one of the leading members of the Kennesaw State Men's Division III Hockey Club. He's a senior and is a homegrown kid. Please welcome to the podcast, Christian Sousa. Christian, welcome to College Hockey Mouth.
How's it going, guys? Thank you for having me. This is great.
One of our CHS European All-Stars. So excited to talk about that a bit with you and Danny Bohm, who went over on that trip. But before we do, let's kind of bring in your background. You're from Noonan. You said in the pre-questions you started at a very young age. So tell us about growing up in the South and how you got into hockey.
Yeah, so my parents are actually from Pittsburgh, and Dad moved down here for a job, and there's not too much hockey around here, but we worked with what we had. He moved down to Noonan, and all that was there was roller hockey. So I started out at 5 years old. My brother, he played before me, and he taught me the ways. He teach me how to skate, and I was off from there. I played in a roller hockey league in Peachtree City, which is a town over, and it's just all spiraled from there, really. I mean, I grew up playing roller until I was about 16, and I played ice at center ice for the first time with the travel team. So rollers definitely influenced me a lot more than ice hockey has, but it's still, everything about it is great. So
yeah, I moved down here when I was 12, and the biggest thing, well, arguably the biggest sport down here is really baseball, in the Atlanta area. Were you strictly a hockey guy, or were you into other sports?
No, I definitely experimented. I tried out baseball for a little bit. I had football for one season. That didn't go so well. But yeah, baseball was my other sport that I really tried out to the maximum. I mean, I just played fall ball and stuff like that, but I tried to get to a travel team, but I realized I was like, you know what? It's not really for me. I enjoyed hockey a lot more. So my dad, he said, got to make a decision. So stuck with hockey. So glad I did.
So right off the bat, are you a Penguins fan or did you lean towards the Thrashers when you got down here?
I was a Penguins fan. Even through the Thrashers, I was still a Penguins fan. So my parents bled through me. So, but do miss the Thrashers a lot, for sure.
Had the reboot of the Thrashers, though. I'm looking for, maybe they won't be the Thrashers. Maybe they'll give them a third name. The third try, they get a new name. But what do you guys think about another NHL team coming to Atlanta? I'm sure we'll have much different opinions than you, Devin, since you're not an Atlanta guy. I think it would be absolutely incredible, and it would do a whole lot better now.
I would agree. I'd say so. But I think, yeah, they have to get the right area because I don't think downtown worked. But where they want it now, like the Alpharetta area, northern Atlanta, that's where I think most of the hockey fan base would be. So I think it's worth a shot, but I do want them to come back as the Thrashers, for sure.
That's an interesting point you make. Down here in South Florida, a lot of fans share that sentiment where North Broward is where a lot of the Panthers fans are, and that's where they built the arena, but it's still far away from a lot of big neighborhoods that led, Panthers fans. Like, you have to drive there. So I feel that kind of sentiment with where the Thrashers were, like you're saying, there at State Farm Arena downtown. I think it used to be Allstate Arena.
Mhm.
So
Phillips.
Yep.
Phillips? Oh, wow. I don't
It
want
was
to get
Phillips
sued.
Arena, yeah.
Boo. Free advertising for 3 companies right there. Are you kidding me? But do you think that the state of Atlanta is ready for that? I know they have a minor league team. I believe the Gladiators, right? But are they ready for that kind of return?
That's definitely over my pay grade, but I know personally I am. But yeah, I'm skeptical, but I think they're ready. But I mean, everything's been going down here. I mean, the cooler mainstay rink that's been up for 30 plus years just got shut down last year for pickleball. So I mean, there's
Insane decision.
Yeah. So we'll see. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
The invasion.
Devin, You mentioned the Gladiators. They're called the Atlanta Gladiators, but that they really tax the definition or the use of the city name. It's like the Bears, how they're about to move to Indiana and they're still going to be called the Chicago Bears. Are they, I would say the rink where they play is like minimum 45 minutes away from Atlanta, but it's gonna take over an hour to get there. So we really don't know how Atlanta is gonna react, whether they'll fully embrace it. I think if they go into it with a plan like how the Braves built their stadium and surrounding area, I think a lot of professional organizations have looked at that as a model to build and to create. I don't know how we got on this conversation. Southern hockey, Georgia.
Why
We
not?
have another Georgia person on here, Devin. We have all these kids that come on that are from Minnesota and Michigan and New Jersey, for God's sakes. I'm sick of the New Jerseyans.
I
Have
know
another Georgia person on here.
it's non-traditional, and you eat it up, right? Like we could have like an hour discussion about the NHL and what it means and expansion, whatever. So for you, I mean, you said the roller hockey background so unique. I know a person from you know that was a coach and still is in the ACHA that went down to Florida a lot for roller hockey. Did you guys get to travel to a lot of tournaments growing up, or was it like kind of out of your main rink at home?
It was that we would have local tournaments all around Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee area, but there was always a big tournament. It's called State Wars. That's the big roller hockey tournament. And well, what they used to do was we would have evaluations and you would represent the state. So we would represent Georgia and then go to, I believe it was in Chicago one year, Detroit another, St. Louis another year, and you'd battle it out with different states. And that was cool and fun growing up. But I'm not sure the state of it now. I think it shut down for COVID for a little bit, but then it picked back up and they're starting to do the actual state wars aspect of it.
How'd you
Okay, that
guys
makes
do
sense.
how'd you guys do in the State Wars tournaments? Do you have any good runs?
One of the COVID years we ended up winning. I think it was 21, but that wasn't actually representing the state. We just took our own team and we would just go and register with the tournament. But years before that, I don't remember. I don't think we ever won a championship. I think we got to one, but we never won one.
Did that play of roller hockey translate to the ice like succinctly, or was it more of a hey, I got to figure out here to step here, get my hips in this place? What was the transition from roller to ice since you started? I think you said what ice hockey around 16.
That's correct. Yeah, it's definitely a lot more positional on ice. Roller, you can do whatever you want, wherever you want, really. I mean, there's no offsides, no icing, four guys. So, I mean, the flow of the game is a lot different, but I think besides the skating, really, everything transitioned pretty smoothly, I would say. Yeah, getting the edges and stopping, that one took a little bit.
Yeah. So you're a I would say an offensively minded defenseman. Now, were you a forward to start, or have you always just had that itch to be offensively involved?
For as long as I can remember, I've always been a defenseman. I think maybe I was a forward between the ages of like 5 to 9 or 10, but after that, I was like, I don't know what made me come to the realization of a defenseman, but it kind of just stuck as soon as I had it one time. But yeah, I've always been offensively minded for sure.
Yeah, you rack up the assists. God, I wish I had this on hand, but you were one of our stars of the month. And I think your numbers were like you had no goals, but like 9 assists
Yep.
in 4 games. And one of the top comments was one of your teammates like, "Dude, you can shoot the puck. It's okay.
Yeah.
You can shoot it."
I hear it all the time in the locker room. Yeah. Yeah, not typically the one to light the lamp, but I definitely like giving up the puck. I'll let someone else do it.
It's easier when
Unselfish, love it.
it goes wrong. Then you don't have yourself to blame. You just be like, ah, that guy, whiffed on his one timer, his snapper. Kennesaw State, pretty close to home. It feels like it was pretty natural for you to go. Was it? Did you have anywhere else in mind, and what led you to kind of playing for the ice hockey team there?
I mean, really, pretty much the ice hockey was a big factor in my decision. I really only applied to a handful of schools, and they were all in state. And I knew I didn't have the grades for like a Georgia or Georgia Tech, so this was the result, and glad I made the decision for sure.
Yeah, so a little bit of unwanted and not no one asked for this background, but I started my club hockey career covering the Kennesaw State team, and I believe it was the last year before Kyle Stevenson took over as head coach. And team struggled a little bit, but I believe you were on that team. What's been the biggest difference in your eyes in the program since Coach Stevenson has taken over?
That is a good question. I would say we are definitely more organized. We would constantly be in a battle with the school and club sports with turning in forms on time, doing the correct pregame stuff, whatever it is. We were always in trouble. But since Kyle's come to the program, it's definitely the organization has stepped up, and we have a good board, good group of guys running the team now. So we're definitely in a better place than we were.
And you, as a senior, have seen so many evolutions of this Owl group. Like, have you guys ever, felt like the program was going to be in jeopardy for a bit? And how have you and others kind of steered it in a better direction and made it now where you're a fully traveling bunch and you guys go to all different places and compete for, what's going to be soon a title?
Yeah, really, the transition from D2 to D3 helped a lot. We were D2 for the longest time and we struggled, definitely. But with the mixture of dropping down to our skill level and a little bit more recruiting over the years, we definitely built up ourselves to be more successful in the past 3 years.
In that first season with Coach Stevenson, you guys made it all the way to nationals. Didn't pan out the way you probably thought it would. Do you have memories of that season and when you guys started to realize, like, hey, this team's different, we can really do something?
Man, that feels like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say we had a weekend against High Point, and that was a really good team. They were a good D2 team that year, and we stuck with them throughout both games. We didn't end up coming out with the W either of the games, but we stuck with them, and I think we rode that momentum throughout the rest of the fall semester, and we definitely rode on the back of our goalies that year, Connor Lackley and Tavion Dees, who's now at UGA. They were definitely a big help and big reason as to why we were successful that year.
He's a stud, by the way. Both of those guys were absolute studs, Devin. I followed that team closely because I was involved with KSU back then. And they were absolute battlers in the net. Super, super fun to watch. And yeah, that High Point team, most recently, I think they were in the national championship for AAU D2 last year. So that team was for real.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've seen Tavion Dees, right, when he was, at Georgia last year, and stood on his head against Florida State. They were really good in their tournament. So you've played with a lot of great guys, and obviously the CHS Europe trip, it was you, Sebastian Zamborski, James Kravis. What was that experience like, getting to go with those guys, along with Kyle Stevenson, and getting to represent a bit for a program that I think has really stepped it up in the last couple of years?
Yeah, it was a unreal experience. Definitely a trip of a lifetime. Yeah, everything about the trip was fantastic. Props to Kyle, Kyle Nell, for organizing it all and getting it all together. It was a lot of fun, and all the teams we played, it was great. It was great competition. I came into it, these guys are good at hockey on our side of things. These guys are good at hockey. Hopefully we can bond from that. But I was a little skeptical going into it, but after the first game, all the guys, they were great. They were beauties for sure. It was just an amazing experience.
Yeah, who was your D partner? Was it Campagna?
Yeah, Campagna. Yeah.
Bimmer. I think they refer to him as
Dimmer
or Bim.
Bim. Oh yeah. I saw that somewhere. I don't know. I don't know the reference, but if you,
I'd never heard the story behind it either. But
I don't either.
They call him Bim.
No.
I have to find this out. Yeah, it's super unique. What's kind of a memory that comes to light to you about Bim or some other guys from that experience
that you can say on here?
Yeah, that I can say on here. Yeah. I would say, just like after every shift, every guy on the bench was there patting you on the back, letting you know it was, even if it wasn't a great shift, it was a good shift. It was good hockey. It was a good job out there. It was every time. Didn't matter what happened on the ice. It was always supportive, and that really stuck out to me the most, I would say.
Something else that stuck out, not only for you, but for a lot of people on the team, right before the day we were going to fly back, we had our travel messed up. We're not going to mention the airline because we don't want to body bag them on here. Do you want to break that down? What that experience was like for you, and what that last game was? I know just about everyone on the team had issues with travel, and that game was a little bit of a gong show because of the stress
Yeah,
on the
that
bench.
that was a it was a bit of a fever dream, to be honest. I mean, going from the last game, let's cherish every moment, to uh-oh, we're not getting home. We got to figure this out. And then all of a sudden, go to the bus. We get the message, go to the bus. We're going to the rink, and it's like we don't have anything figured out. It was surreal, but yeah, we banded together and we got the W in the end, and we all figured it out and made it home safely. So can't ask for much worse or much better.
Would you say there was more hockeyisms, and by that I mean the travel and your gear and coordinating with the fellas? Was there more of that on this Europe trip than what you experienced in roller hockey, or how did the two compare?
I would say, you mean like just like the camaraderie and stuff?
That and also the behind the scenes, I guess, to getting to the ice. In roller hockey, you don't have as much, I think, like you still have as much gear, right? But it's not as like,
Yeah, it's
bulky as
no.
hockey. So, did roller hockey feel like that? Was it tougher to get around places, or was the Europe side different?
I would say, well, that's tough. I mean, getting all the gear, the sticks, the new gear that we received, the backpacks, the jerseys, it was a lot to lug around. So I'd say it was definitely more difficult getting that everywhere. But like I said, in the end, everything worked out. So can't complain.
And in roller hockey, did you have to ever deal with any Romanian bus drivers who may have been on two hours
Fortunately,
of sleep?
yeah. Fortunately not.
And yeah, Devin, that might be a story for another day, but our bus driver was an absolute maniac.
He was insane.
Yeah, he surprisingly didn't get into any accidents with how reckless he was with that bus at times until the very last day. We were pulling in to the game at Amiens, and he had a thing where he liked to do like 25-point turns and take forever with him. And this one in particular, he decided to scrape up against like four or five different cars. And we didn't move for like 25 minutes or so it felt like. And we were like, what are we doing here? But and everyone's like agitated and stressed because the travel's all messed up. And we're just sitting there in the bus, like, what's going on right now? We're not moving.
Yeah, I don't know if you were on the bus. You went to the ski resort, correct?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, on the way there and on the way back, especially on the way back, because we were going downhill. We were cruising through the mountains of Germany, going back and forth, up and down hills, and he didn't like to use his brakes. So we were flying through there on a double-decker bus. It was a bit scary, just a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed on the way up that they had these little narrow roads on, and we're going up a mountain, Devon, and he's got to go around like a pretty tight corner, and he just didn't care. Like if there was a car in the opposite lane, like we were just gonna hit him. Like we had no choice. He was like he claimed the road. And I'm like I'm just looking out at like the landscape, like man, this is super cool. And then I look down and like we're on the other side of the road, like oh god. I don't even know what his name was, but I think someone said it was Igor. Might not though. I think someone just gave him a nickname.
Yeah, I think
You know what would have been the icing on the cake is, have you seen the guy that drives? I think he's in like Poland or somewhere. And he drives a bus and he does all these like made up like hand signals. He has like a signature. Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh my
No
god.
clue.
I'm gonna sound so stupid on this, this recording for this. Yeah, he does like, I don't know. He does these like, if you know, you know. He does like these like little like flicks, like this random like thing he started. That would have been like the icing on the cake. The way this guy sounds, truly a European experience for you guys as Americans. Maybe he was messing with you because you're Americans, But just great stuff, boys. From what was awesome. I want to go back just real quick to kind of something you mentioned to us about you at KSU. You said you studied geospatial sciences. Can you kind of explain what that major entails?
that is correct. Geospatial sciences. Everyone has the same perplexion to it. I tell them my major, like, boy, what is that? It's rooted down to really what I like to put it as is modernized cartography, which is digital mapping, remote sensing, satellite imagery, surveying, lidar detection, anything with newer mapping technologies is involved with the major.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
So like, what's like the standard, like where would you work to do this? Like for I'm gonna sound ridiculous, but like NASA? Do you work for like a state
Yeah, I mean,
road
Would you work for
commission.
NASA?
NASA
I
is
have no idea,
it is
dude.
an option. I mean, the remote sensing is a big field within the department. NASA, lots of. I'm currently interning at a city government, and so that's one. Local engineering firms. I really want to get into hydrographic surveying, which is mapping large bodies of water, the ocean, lakes, rivers. That's using sonar, and that's really what I want to get into. But that's just a sliver of the field. It expands to every branch you could think of, really.
Yeah, I do not have the mental capacity to formulate a follow-up question that would be in any way intelligent. But as long as you're happy doing it, I'm glad for you. I want to ask a hockey question now. So last year at playoffs, one thing I observed was that South Carolina was like the juggernaut team. They finished the year undefeated, but the team that played them the best and gave them the best run was you guys. And then, fast forward to the beginning of this season, you guys give them their first ever loss. Do you think that's a little bit of a rivalry forming, or you think you guys might have their number a little bit? They're having another great season and might be a team you see in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you could see a budding rivalry. We're very chippy with a lot of teams, and surprisingly, with them, it's not too bad actually. The guys over there are great. But yeah, we always have a chip on our shoulders whenever we play them. So I know we got them coming up in February. They're coming here, so those will be some heated games. Definitely big implications to playoffs.
You
That'll
guys
be an
are
interesting follow-up, Devin. It's something we've talked about on the podcast a bunch, is how often you guys are in chippy games. Is it just something that is it just bred within the locker room? Is it your leadership? Where does that come from?
It could boil down to a couple of guys that I may or may not want to call out, but
We've probably named them
yeah, you
on this
said
podcast already.
said one of them. Yeah, is definitely a proponent of a lot of the chippiness. Yeah, I mean, we don't usually go into it thinking, "Oh yeah, we're gonna mess these guys up. We're gonna get into it with them," but it kind of just ends up happening more times than not.
I feel like you guys can embody a team from Georgia that way, though. When I think of Kennesaw State, I think of bruised and battered hockey, and you come to mind because you're a big guy. Um, whether you agree or not, I don't know, but that's my take on kind of your playing style. I think we've done a lot of discussion on this pod about kind of what's at stake and what does it all mean. But like when you go into these final games where there is a lot on the line, you guys are trying to make playoffs, and that's essentially your season for this point. Like, how do you guys kind of approach that and tone down if you do kind of the aggressiveness, or do you keep it all the same the whole year?
I know our coach Kyle. His go-to saying is "not too high, not too low." We try to follow that lead, but a lot of times, just the heaviness and battling of the game gets to our heads, and lots of talking. The talking will. We say we're strong or mentally strong and gonna avoid the talking and not get into it, but it eventually gets to us and we get a little chippy. But yeah, I mean, not too high, not too low is what we strive for.
Okay. Our fantastic research team found this on the KSU hockey Instagram. You boldly stated that you can beat anyone at Mario Kart. Do you want to put out a bulletin right now across the entire college hockey South landscape challenging anyone to a Mario Kart?
See, so I'm a big Mario Kart Wii guy. I could put some money down for that. Not so much the modern games, but Mario Kart Wii, I could mess someone up.
You
Well,
have
okay.
a
What's the go-to?
go
Yeah,
ahead.
because it's we. I mean, you know what? Let me guess. Are you a Bowser guy?
The Wii, no, it's gotta be Funky Kong. Gotta be Funky.
That's the best answer.
Oh yeah.
That's so good. Okay, Funky Kong. All right. Well, then what map are you choosing, or what cup for it?
See, I mean, you gotta test the waters and test your challenge. So I mean, you gotta go the Crown or Special Cup. You gotta go with Rainbow Road, Bowser Castle. Gotta show them what you're worth.
So have you taken down everyone on your team? I would have to imagine if you're gonna go out there and say you can beat anybody, have you beaten everyone on your team?
We haven't really experimented with it, but now that you're bringing this up again, it's not a bad shout. Should probably bring it up and actually put it to fruition.
I'm saying maybe at playoffs that would be we got to set up something.
Oh yeah,
Need to have a little Mario Kart parlay during playoffs. Blow off a little steam.
yeah, that'd be great.
Let's use that training room between the two, the stadium rink and the middle rink, and just have that as like the Mario Kart lounge. Like, forget, the figure skating training or whoever can be up there. I think it's us the whole weekend. So we probably could do
Yeah.
this hypothetically. Put out just, somebody's Wii with an HDMI cord and,
Yo,
whatever
it get
TV
more
and bam.
heated in there. It would get more heated in there than on the ice,
This
probably.
might.
Yeah, honestly, for real. Yeah, it's going to be chaos as it is. We're going to have, like, I don't even know, 30 teams there or whatever the amount is. But,
It's up there. Yeah.
yeah, we're hoping you guys are one of them. I guess, for everyone listening and you kind of, what's been like your favorite memory, and also what's the thing you're looking forward to the most as you wrap up, I believe, if you're a senior, wrap up your collegiate career?
So best memory, I can't really narrow it down to one single memory. I mean, it's been a fantastic 4 years, and I can't thank the program enough, and thank everyone around me, parents, girlfriends, friends. They've all been super supportive, and it's been really great. I guess going into these last final weeks, just cherish every moment. There's only about 4 or 5 weeks left, so you gotta make do with what you got and leave it all out.
I like that answer. And you'll have a lot to leave it out for. We look forward to seeing you guys play in South Carolina, like you mentioned, in February. And got some AAU games coming up, I think. Enjoy those. And Christian, thanks so much for coming on the pod, and good luck the rest of the year.
Yeah, thank you guys. This has been awesome. Thank you for letting me share all my stories. So this has been great. Thank you.
Thanks to Christian Sousa for coming on the pod, as we like to say. Kennesaw State, fun to see them down the stretch competing for the playoff spot in men's Division III. Let's get to our game recaps of episode 22, starting with Tennessee and Clemson. Entertaining split series. Clemson took game 1 6-2. The Vols came back 6-4 in game number 2. I really thought after watching game 1 and how Clemson controlled this that they would handily win this series. Obviously, Charlie Sarafian's Vols had something to say about it.
Yeah. Speaking of Charlie and his friend, his friend, but also his broadcast partner, Holden Balls. I'm pretty sure that's not how you say his last name, but that's how Charlie pronounced it. Whatever. Sorry, Holden, if that's not how you say your last name. What a performance those guys had. Those guys had a blast calling the game. There are specific moments that, made me chuckle, made me put my hands on my head, like, what are they doing? But definitely go out of your way to watch those guys call a game on TCSN. But yeah, it was pretty dominant for Clemson, and that in our game of the week. It started off with a 5-on-3 shorthanded goal, which is probably the worst possible thing you can allow. It's like, I don't know, bases loaded, no outs, and getting no runs. It's like throwing a pick in the red zone, maybe a pick six in the red zone. Trying to think of other analogies, but it's just the worst thing possible. And that kind of just set the tone for what was really a mess of a game for Tennessee. But they come back and get the split, which is important for them, seeing as how rankings decide the standings for the D3 playoffs.
Yeah, I didn't expect Tennessee, I'm not going to lie, to go and win one of these games. So good on them splitting the series, potentially moving them up in the ranking. Obviously, Clemson's pretty high up there, a lock for a playoff spot. That's not really a question at this point. It's more, is Tennessee going to fall out or are teams going to take their place? So good on them not to get swept and to get one of these games.
So I got to address the gaping elephant in the room here. Well, look, for those that are watching this on YouTube, I am in the office here at my regular work. And I told Gavin before we started recording, I feel like I'm in a movie Alien Exodus because I've just got yellow lighting around me. So I apologize if you have to look at my face here on the YouTube recording. Just skip past that. Gotta go where the Wi-Fi connection is the best. I've had some troubles there at home. All right, no
Don't
comments.
go to Strasbourg. Don't go to Strasbourg, Rouen, or basically those
Why?
two places. They don't have the best streaming Wi-Fi, believe it or not.
I don't plan to. I didn't even know Strasbourg existed until you guys talked about it a couple weeks ago.
It's pretty sweet, not gonna lie. I enjoyed Strasbourg.
I'm sure. I've never been overseas, like to Europe, so you've got that leg up on me. Moving things along, Florida Atlantic and USF, an M2 Florida Atlantic team taking on the Bulls M3 in this non-conference exhibition, although it was as entertaining as you can find among games this last weekend. The Bulls took game 1 6-4 with some impressive goals. They led by 3 late in this one. Owls made it interesting. They stormed back in game 2, won 4-3. Jackson Neuendijk with a hat trick in game number 1. I feel like this USF team has the makeup of really seeing them again for the second time since the break. Like, they have developed their depth in a large way. Daniel Bogdanov had a great series. He was all over it. Bryson Uhrig impressed the heck out of me. Max Mudge and Grant Dietz each added 2 goals in game number 1. And despite this being an exhibition, these two teams competed last year in the same division of AAU, and USF looks like a team that's poised to make a nationals run.
Yeah, and exhibition, I don't like that term necessarily for teams that are still in the same conference, not the same division, of course, but these games mean something. In-state and USF and FAU have developed a rivalry across all their varsity sports. There's definitely some tension between the two schools, and there's tension in this series. I had a bunch of guys thrown out and picking up penalty minutes. Grant Dietz had north of like 35 penalty minutes in the 2 games, so he's going to increase his lead for uh, penalty minutes in the entire ACHA, which is pretty ridiculous considering he's one of the top scorers as well. But hey, they pick up a win against a good FAU team now back at full strength. Last week they didn't have, I believe it was 4 players that were coming back from Europe. And, hey, hats off to USF for picking up a win.
Yeah, USF is one of those teams where I think they could probably move up in the next year or two. I mean, obviously they've got to get a little bit more disciplined. Grant Dietz took 16 penalty minutes in game 1, and that was with like 2 minutes. I mean, obviously there were 2 minutes left in the game, but relatively the first game was pretty clean. And then when I saw they had to pull out the second sheet for penalties, that's when you knew the second game was a little bit more heated, a little bit more of that rivalry that Danny talked about.
This all stemmed from a hit late with Daniel Tove, Will Fliss. Basically, everybody just dogpiled in there. And I really don't blame either guy for doing what they did after the whistle. It was a tough play to make. It took like 7 minutes. I mean, you need an entire second sheet for penalties alone. Even though this one looked bad on paper, it was not really, I don't think, the story of the game. Both teams had their looks back and forth. I think it was mostly about the skill, and it wasn't as chippy as you might think by just the ending, how it got out of hand. And I believe that if USF moved up a level, which I have full confidence they can do, that these young guys with this young team around their core, which is, Dietz, Duhaime, Uhrig, a couple of others, that they would be able to compete with FAU, that they would probably compete better against Tampa. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. They'll have a game with them again, but it's just an interesting thing to take away from. And Danny, I like that you called me out for the non-conference point. You know who coined that is the guy that I worked with, Craig Minervini from FanDuel Sports Network on this game, and he mentioned to me that non-conference sounds better, but I don't know. I mean, they are same conference, different divisions. It could be though pretty soon, and Neuendijk gets our player of the series with 5 goals overall. Former NCAA Division I player from Canisius.
Who also, Devin, who also got thrown out of that second game. And what I wanted to bring up, because...
Did we mention that? Yeah, this was kind of a big thing, right?
Yeah, he ended up, and, we'll have more on Jackson Neuendijk later, because he performed very well in this series. As you mentioned, player of the series. So they were on the power play in the 3rd period, and he was kind of at the left point, made a pass over to the left circle, and was trying to move it towards the slot, got tangled up with a guy, and kind of just like a reflex play, like I think, hockey players would call it a separator, kind of give him a poke in the midsection, and he jabbed him pretty good. Like, it was a penalty. Problem is, the FAU power play continued for like another 15 seconds before they ended up taking a shot, and then, in the ensuing whistle, or after the ensuing whistle, the referees huddled and then decided that he needed to be thrown out of the game, which is, I don't know, can you rewind time like that and call, and it's kind of like, it's not a direct analogy, but I tried to make a similar one earlier. It's like calling a holding penalty on a play that happened 3 plays ago. Like, cat's kind of out of the bag at that point. Like, I don't know. I didn't like that. It was definitely a penalty. You can't have guys being that wild with their sticks. And speaking of that, Grant Dietz got DQ for head contact. It wasn't technically, it was head contact. It was a cross check to the face of Cucci. USF was on the power play, and Dietz was trying to hold the line, and it looked like Kuchu was going to get past them. And just in a really dangerous and reckless play, had his stick up high, and it was right under the face mask. And yeah, super dangerous play. Knocked Cooch on his back and looked like he was pretty shaken up. And man, it's a shame that Grant Dietz takes so many penalties and does dirty stuff like that, because that you don't like seeing plays like that. I think the end of game stuff, like you talked about, Devin, there's a little dust up. I think that's fine. It's hockey. But stuff like that, man, there's no need for it.
The game prior to this one on Friday was the M3 teams. Florida Atlantic took on Florida Southern, and FAU got their first win in a while. Swept the Moccasins 8-3, and Game 2 had a comeback in dramatic fashion in overtime. Gavin, I'll just let you take the floor because you had the call for both. Very impressive stuff from your guy, Will Marshall, who I think the funniest thing I heard from the weekend was that he showed up to Boca Ice Center on Friday, forgot his skates, and the director of operations, Christina Staffoliris for Florida Atlantic, gave him an extra pair of skates she had, a size up from his size 7, I think it was, and he still put up points. So, if that's not GOAT status, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I remember last week you asked me what had to happen in this series, and I told you whatever team got started first, and FAU got started first in that game. Obviously, Will Marshall did Will Marshall things and scored 2 goals in 15 seconds. Right after that, he did skate over to the bench and showed him, hey, I've got loaner skates on, and I scored 2 goals. But that's Will Marshall for you. It was a little bit of a sloppy game. They didn't get their legs underneath them in that first one. Some careless plays with the puck, which just allowed FAU to take advantage. Somehow on the score sheet, I don't know if this is true, they scored 4 power play goals in a row. I don't know how that happened. I don't think that's correct. Someone was just checking the box because, I don't know, because I mean, I was there and I didn't see 4 power play goals. I saw 2. And then game 2, Florida Southern got off to a good start and kind of just lost their footing. Will Marshall, again, scored 2, set up the 3rd goal. And overtime was what you could imagine. 3-on-3, it was great. There was good pace. And what happened is Florida Southern had an opportunity and took the shot and just couldn't get back in time. And Peter Petito took it, went down the right side and just put it right top shelf and ended the game. They both had good opportunities to go, and FAU just got that one and found it and put it in the back of the net. I mean, Peter Petito had a great series, had a hat trick in game 1 and then 2 goals, including a game winner. If you're FAU, you're feeling pretty good about those first 2 games. You were down there talking to their players. And they said they were going to win those games, and they came out and they walked the walk. And so they came out and they're in a good position. Potentially that put them in a playoff spot. So we'll have to see when the rankings come out.
I don't know about playoff spot because of where they're at. I think this was the 15th and 16th place teams. They were like 1 apart from each other. By the time this episode comes out, I could be completely wrong because the ACHA still has not released, at the time of this recording, the rankings, despite them going through January 18th. Besides the point, fun series, and Peter Petito came down from the M2 team. Been a welcome sight. That was a banged up M3 team. I know they've really struggled with a lot of the new guys. I think all but 5 players are brand new to that team. So Peter Petito doing what he does is great. Sam Watson finished with 5 goals on the weekend for Florida Atlantic. Entertaining series, and thanks to Gavin for covering that one. Kennesaw State took on Austin Peay and absolutely dominated. Just simply, I know we use that word a lot, but I mean, this is, as big as it gets. 22-1 in game 1, 12-1 in game number 2. I don't even know. I think Kennesaw State just walked into Austin Peay and let them see what they had in their might. So tough look for the guys over there at Austin Peay. I really like that team and their jerseys and the environment they have. This was all Owls in this series. Liberty took on Middle Tennessee. Now this is an AAU Division III Liberty team. Kind of odd to say that, considering we wasn't too sure who was left from the AAU league. And this one is a really good team because they swept Middle Tennessee. First losses for Middle Tennessee since the very beginning of the season, when they lost 2 straight to UNC Wilmington, an M2 ACHA team. 9-7 in game 1 and 5-3 in game 2. Guys, do we have any notes on this? I mean, I was pretty shocked to find out about these scores when they came out.
Yeah, they were coughed up leads by MTSU. You know, they held firm control of both games and wound up losing it. But to classify Liberty as in just any other AAU D3 team, I think is a little unfair. They were the top seed going into AAU D3 nationals last year, and were looked at as probably the favorite. You know, it's easy to say that, number one seed, but wound up getting upset before making it to the national championship game against South Carolina. And Middle Tennessee, you know, maybe it's just like a beginning of the semester thing. They have to get their two losses out of the way, and then, you know, they're off to the races. You know, as you mentioned, that they opened the season with two losses and then closed the fall with 16 straight. Let's see what they do from this point on, because that can't sit well with the boys.
Yeah, I think MTSU, like Danny mentioned, I mean, it was their first two games. We know they had a game last week that they were supposed to play against Indiana, got canceled because of travel issues and things like that. You kind of wonder if the boys wanted that game. Probably would have helped them feel a little bit more in tune. I mean, some of these guys haven't been playing hockey for a month or two, depending on break. And like they have their guys in Europe. But I think the hardest part for me is Grant Williams didn't start game one and got put in. I'm not sure if Kopech got hurt or they just decided to switch goalies, but he ended up taking two losses on the weekend because he got in the first game and only played about 21 minutes or so. And he took the loss, and then he started game two and took another loss. So, you know, it's kind of weird. We've been tracking goalie stats, looking at them, and they look outrageous right now. I mean, mainly because they did play a really strong Liberty team. So we should expect MTSU to get back to what they've got going on. I mean, they've got two pretty normal games, some CHS games this weekend. So I expect them to come out firing and really put up some numbers this week.
And what Danny said about losing games to start the semester, you almost are thankful that it's non-conference, this for sure non-conference, in their 4 losses, because they are still undefeated, technically in the ranking eyes. They don't have too many games left in M3, and they've all but locked up their spot in the 16-team tournament in St. Louis. So at this point, it really feels like it's about management for their team and holding the best seed they can for what's going to be an already impressive and honestly gauntlet M3 tournament, considering what we've seen out of the Michigan schools and how they're jockeying. Whoever makes it 1 through 16 is going to look to really compete at this nationals. So tough ones for Middle Tennessee, but against teams that don't count for the rankings. Danny?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Serra. An important note for MTSU, because they believed that the last game of December, or their last game of the fall semester, was going to be the swan song for their leading scorer, Matt Siciliano. He graduated at the end of the fall semester and was having issues getting eligibility for the spring semester. But a little bit before they were scheduled to play Indiana, the ACHA granted him another semester of eligibility, which is a huge win, obviously. Leading scorer, you know, they have a ton of depth on that team. They score a ton of goals. But if they lost Matt Siciliano on the stretch run, that would have been huge. So it's almost like, you know, a trade deadline acquisition. You know, it was a guy they didn't expect to have. So that's a big piece of news for MTSU.
Around the conference, some final scores to take note of. South Carolina, top 10 in ACHA Men's Division 3, took care of UCF 5-2 and 3-1 this weekend. Another M3 matchup, Florida Gulf Coast shuts out Akron 7-0 and 10-0. Blinders for BJ Riccardi and Justin Garstecki in net. Good to see for the Ice Eagle boys. Jacksonville and USF in this ACDC weekend. Tough one for the Bulls here. They were without their goaltenders, had first-timers in net for them. They fall 14-4 and 9-4, respectively, against a number 2 Jacksonville squad in ACDC. Florida ACDC took on Florida Tech, and the Gators swept this one 5-3 and 3-1. They hold sole place of the number 1 seed in ACDC College Hockey South. On the women's side, Florida took care of Miami handily, 19-2 and 14-1 wins for the Gators. Congrats to Marissa Bonilla, we talked to last weekend on the pod, for their efforts. Auburn and Alabama in the Iron Cup. Head coach Jack Rosenhammer and the Auburn Tigers put up a fight, but Alabama once again takes this series 6-2 and 5-2. Alabama keeps rolling with just one loss in CHS and overall. And South Carolina and Georgia on the women's side with a entertaining series. South Carolina, though, gets the 2 wins over Georgia, 5-2 and 2-0 to wrap up some of our final scores. 3 stars of the week. I am prefaced to say that, and jokingly in our group chat, that KSU guys should have been banned from the score sheet this weekend for the win they had over Austin Peay. When you win by that much, I don't know if it's even legal, but Chris Scott from Kennesaw State is our first star, 7 goals, 2 apples, 9 points overall in those 2 games. Second star, Jackson Newendike from Florida Atlantic M2 had a 5-goal weekend. We talked about his performance earlier against USF M3. And finally, Mackenzie Cronin from the South Carolina women's team with a perfect 2-0 record, 1.0 goals against average, .962 save percentage with one of those games, a shutout in net.
Hell yeah. Great stuff from last week. Anyone have any notes on those quick little recaps? I think the one thing I would say, Alabama women's clinches a spot in the playoffs officially now with those 2 wins over Auburn. Congratulations to them. They'll have a chance to defend their conference championship from last year. And South Carolina and Florida Gulf Coast kind of almost mirroring each other with how they play. You know, they're starting to heat up. I think that would be a super interesting playoff matchup, if I say so. It might go to overtime 0-0 though.
I was going to say, so you want to see like 1996, 97 NHL hockey where
Clutch and
it's
hold,
just like
baby.
a slugfest.
Yeah, clutch and hold, defensive trap hockey.
If I'm watching that, I'm going to take the under on shots. And by under, I mean like 25 overall. I don't think either
Combined,
team wants the other to get to the front of the net. But I mean, we could see Florida Gulf Coast is finding their stride at the right time. And South Carolina, even though they haven't played as many games, they've just been rolling. They're very much in contention. I believe they're eligible for nationals. And
Yes.
if they get there, they'd be a pretty scary team to face for anybody. Seeing what we've known out of them, obviously conference champions last year for CHS when it was AAU Men's Division III. Flipping sides of the coin to an upcoming week that is jam-packed. We've got a full sheet here. We're going to do our best to get through it in one piece, but I know along the way, guys, we'll have a lot of talking points. First up, we've got some news, right? We announced the Florida showcase going on?
So yeah,
Gasparilla. We can
Gasparilla. Yeah,
Gavin, I think you're really involved in this. So do you want to talk about what's going on in the Gasparilla Tampa region for the women's side?
Yeah, you've got a couple matchups coming up at Nest Hockey Academy. So a great rink. In fact, I was just out there not too long ago for St. Leo. So yeah, Gasparilla Classic Thursday. You're going to have Tampa versus USF. Danny said it, a pinnacle Tampa Gasparilla rivalry matchup. And then on Saturday, Auburn versus Clemson, and then Clemson versus Florida. So another back-to-back for Clemson. They started their season that way, and they showed that it doesn't really matter to them if they're playing back-to-backs. And then you got on Sunday, Miami versus Auburn, Tampa versus Clemson, and then USF versus Miami. So a lot of Southern schools competing. It's going to be a fun weekend. We're going to have it live streamed, so it's going to be awesome.
More on that in next week's episode. We can put it in the pod. I put you on the spot there, so good job finding the notes on it. It was put on the spot. Savannah Prefontaine texted me this last weekend and asked me who could find out about broadcast information, and everybody's kind of pulling together. Gavin, I know you've been in close contact. Appreciate you for your efforts. We look forward to that and talking about it more in episode 23. Keeping it rolling here on the M2 side, we've got a really, really interesting matchup. Farmingdale State hosts Florida Atlantic. Now, these are now M2 teams, but Danny, these are 2 teams that you mentioned before the pod that have never met. Florida Atlantic fans might be used to seeing Farmingdale State from the AAU Men's Division II side, but that's a different team. They have not faced what used to be this AAU Division I powerhouse, and the stakes couldn't be any higher for Florida Atlantic that's trying to get into the Southeast Regional.
Yes, and this was a series that was scheduled pretty late in the game. So with all the movement that was going on with the different leagues, Florida Atlantic had a mainly M3 schedule, a lot of M3 opponents on their calendar. And with how the rankings are applied with those games not really being factored in at all. They were scrambling to find M2 teams to fill out their schedule, and this was one they were able to get on there, which is super fun. Farmingdale's had a strong season, and they get a trio of games up there in Long Island. They're a tried and true program. They do a really good job on social media. They have like a whole strength and conditioning program. From what I understand, they got a whole staff too. So yeah, this will be interesting. Looking forward to seeing how this one plays out.
Now, Farmingdale State is coming off playing some M1 teams in Stony Brook and Lehigh. Remember, Farmingdale State, if you haven't heard the news yet, is going to be a men's Division One team in ACHA next year, this Farmingdale State team. So they're playing some of these tune-ups against teams. I believe they lost to Stony Brook and Lehigh, but they were very close. Their best wins this year, they had a split against Binghamton, who's number 5 in the Northeast region. They had a win and a shootout loss down in Clearwater Ice Arena against Tampa. And the game number 2, they won. They did it in convincing fashion, 6-2. Their top 6 is very good. They're all averaging a point per game, 20 points overall. John Crodell leads that group with 12 goals, 16 apples, 28 points overall. It feels like for FAU, Danny, you talked a little bit about you're not really sure about this Florida Atlantic team as much as last year. They have guys that did well against Farmingdale State at Nationals a year ago, but not like what they've seen against the talent that this Farmingdale State team has.
Yeah, the depth has been I was still questioning their depth offensively. You look at the score sheets from their wins recently, and it's a lot of the same names. You see the Newendikes, the Beziers, and Biller. Um, you'd like to see if they're going to have success against these better teams. You're going to have to see guys like Georgiano and Cuccia and probably Ronan Keenan pitch in a little bit, maybe some offense from the back end. Otherwise, they're going to have to become more of a defensive stalwart, and that just hasn't been the case so far this year. They got the guy in net who can hold it down for them, but as a run and gun team, they're a little bit too top heavy. Moving along.
So FAU, who is number 13 in the Southeast region at the time of this recording, if they can get 2 wins, even one against a number 2 Northeast team in Farmingdale State, it would do wonders for them in the rankings. We said it all year long, but we're going to remind it again. Top 16 teams go to regionals. There is no more auto bid to nationals, so every team has to win their way. Now, Farmingdale State is pretty much a lock, but Florida Atlantic is on the border. You'd have to think a number 2 team would count big time for them, not just strength of schedule, but in game performance. Games 1 and 2 will be at Northwell Health Ice Center at 9:15 p.m. Eastern on Friday and 8:30 p.m. on Saturday. Sunday's game will be during the Hockey Day in Long Beach. This is at Long Beach Municipal Ice Arena. Why that's important, that is the main rink sheet at Long Beach. It's got good seating. It's where Long Island Sports Network, who formerly broadcasted AAU Nationals, is out of. So this is a big day and a big opportunity for FAU on this stage.
Yeah, Devin, Anthony Campagna. He's from the Long Island area, no?
Correct.
All right, so that'll be a cool one for him. I'm sure he'll have the fam out watching at least one of those games. So you'll get a little FAU support up there in Long Island.
I also wonder if Rocco's going to bring his grandparents. I think I heard a story from him, and I think he explained this in one of the first episodes, that they went to Philadelphia for AAU Nationals, and he brought the whole team to his grandparents' house, and they had a giant lunch or dinner with the family. So I wonder if those people make the trip out here to a New York area that's known for hockey and known for how good of a program Farmingdale State is. Of course, like you said, you can catch all those games on the Long Island Sports Network, free on YouTube. M2 rolls on with Florida, number 16 in the Southeast, taking on number 17 in the Northeast, Boston College. 2 teams that are on the border of their respective regional tournaments. They'll play a single game at Community First Igloo. This is part of Boston College's trip to Florida. They'll take on Tampa as well. The Eagles are really impressive the last 10, 8-1-1. They've won 7 straight. Last time they lost, they got trounced by Fairfield 7-3. But Florida had a strong performance at the Savannah Hockey Classic. Big time for them. They don't have too many games left on the schedule.
Yeah, cool. Congratulations to Florida. Don't have much to say about the Savannah Hockey Classic. Yeah, good stuff, Florida. Nice uniforms. A couple of cool videos came out on socials. Go Gators. They didn't get it done against Carolina. It is what it is. Keep it rolling, boys.
Savannah Hockey Classic, yeah, a little bit of a switch over this year. Used to be a CHS event. I'm proud of Florida, though, for holding it down against, one, a really strong Tennessee team, and then South Carolina had their way, made it interesting a little bit later. Keegan Lampin and Jack Fortescue were some of the bright spots for them, potting goals in that first game against Tennessee. Gators wound up being the runner-up in this year's Savannah Classic. And yeah, the sharp-looking blue tarps for the boys. I said a moment ago, the Gators don't have many games left. Only 3 left that will count for their rankings. They are right on the cut line there for regionals. Sort of a must-win. On the M3 side, Tampa hosts Florida Atlantic, who's got those big wins against your Florida Southern Moccasins. Gavin, Tampa really controlled Florida Atlantic in November. Huge scores, huge wins. I think one was like 15-4. So is there any chance that this M3 Florida Atlantic team makes this a series?
I think if they can ride the momentum that they're coming off of, Drew Renzi, Sam Watson, Peter Petito really got going, Sam Carrazzo, they've got the weapons to get it going. It's just one about playing Tampa's game. Tampa plays a brutal physical game, and you have to be able to withstand that, not end up in the box. We were talking off air about Reagan Lyon. We talked about him in Paris, the kind of guy he is, the player he is. So you gotta be able to withstand that if FAU wants a chance in this game. I mean, this is a huge series coming off of 2 big wins to start their semester.
I'll say this, if Florida Atlantic finds a way to keep it close, they're on the way outside looking in. I don't know, way outside. They're a couple of double-digit ranks away from getting into College Hockey South playoffs. It's a big one, though. If you're Florida Atlantic, you got to circle this one and bring everything you got, because this is pretty much their series on the line, or season on the line, against number 8 Tampa in Men's Division 3.
I think what we should say about the rest of these games, Devin, because a lot of these teams are playing their first action since the end of the fall semester, and we almost want to say, and we have mentioned it already, that you want to give them grace for the fact that they haven't played games in a while, but you don't have that grace because there aren't too many more ranking periods before things are set in stone and teams are being named to regionals or nationals. So you kind of just have to hit the ground running. Otherwise, you're going to be on the outside looking in. So absolutely, FAU has to win those games. And I think making nationals isn't even in question at this point. It's not going to happen. But if they want to make the playoffs, they're going to have to win at least one of these games and keep the other one close.
That leads me into my next point with M2 Tampa facing off with Boston College, part of that road trip aforementioned. This Spartan group hasn't played a game since November 22nd. Boston College will already have had a game under their belt against the Gators. So you've got to think that Tampa, they had guys over in Europe, their coach, all of that stuff. They've got to not have as much rust. I think Boston College has an argument as being a sneaky upset, and Tampa needs every bit of ranking they can get when we get to this regional where Southeast, it's going to be a gauntlet. All those TSCHL teams like Ohio, Indiana, Ohio State are rolling. So interesting one there. You can catch that on Black Dog Hockey from Clearwater Ice Arena. Number 2 in the Southeast, South Carolina, and number 10, Clemson from M3. Danny wrote in all caps, "It's about time that these 2 teams played again." Now, the M3 South Carolina and Clemson game was canceled, but last time these 2 sides played, the M2 Gamecocks won 7-0 in October. Clemson just split with Tennessee in our game of the week. So, Danny, the floor is yours.
Well, I have to give credit where credit is due. That was not me who wrote that in the show notes. That was Gavin. Because personally, and this may be a controversial opinion, I don't really see the value in this game. I understand it's a tradition and, it's Palmetto Cup and it dates back a long time. Clemson's got to play M3 teams. This doesn't really mean a whole lot. And I guess on paper, it doesn't mean a whole lot. It means a ton to these guys. And the South Carolina Clemson matchup is something that, it goes without saying. But, I'd much rather this game be between the M3 Gamecocks and Clemson. I think that would, tickle my pickle a little bit more But it's in Bon Secours Arena in Greenville, which is a cool venue for a hockey game. I've been there in the past for one of those, and it was a really good turnout. I would assume it would be the same because it didn't happen last year, unfortunately. But yeah, that's my piece. It might be controversial, probably not a shared opinion, but who cares? Whatever.
I care more about if we're going to see a line brawl. I don't want to see guys get suspended. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. Every time I've gone to the internet and looked up research on this matchup, this M2 South Carolina team and this Clemson team, there's always something that happens post whistle. Always. Whether it's at the end of the game, at the start, these two teams just hate each other. Both fan bases obviously don't like each other. I don't care what the final score is. I really hope that we see some of that old fashioned grittiness and two teams that just, bang it out on the glass and
I hope we see
see
that
who
in the
the tougher
women's
side
game.
is.
We haven't got much
Right?
chippiness. We haven't seen much chippiness on the women's side so far this year. Maybe a game or two. But man, there couldn't be a better game to get that started. We get closer to the playoffs, which, by the way, boys, is only like a month out, which is crazy. We're coming in hot on playoff season. But yeah, I don't know. Love a little scrappiness. Love a little gamesmanship post whistle.
Number 24, Florida Gulf Coast, travels up to Miami of Ohio, not the Hurricanes from Coral Gables. This is in Oxford, Ohio. January 23rd to 25th, take on Aquinas College, Purdue, and number 15 GVSU. Fun little side note, a couple years ago, I had the chance to travel to this showcase with Central Michigan, and they play out of Goggin Ice Arena, state-of-the-art building. It's like a cathedral. You go into the main barn that the NCAA team plays on, and you can hear your echo for a good 3 or 4 seconds. It's one of my personal favorite arenas. Very happy that Florida Gulf Coast got asked to be part of this. I hope the boys really enjoy it because that facility is state of the art in college hockey. Getting to our news of the week, and really, if you've followed these teams, it's been apparent they could have this happen for a while. But Vanderbilt is going to play MTSU at the home of the Nashville Predators, Bridgestone Arena in downtown Nashville, Sunday, right, guys? I believe I
Yes.
have the read right here.
Yes, it is Sunday.
So let's lay the floor out. Regardless of where the teams are at, this has got to be as cool as it gets to play in an NHL barn.
This is the second of 3 arena games this weekend. This is the only one that's going to be in a primary NHL barn, which is really cool for these guys. We'll get to the third one in a bit, but yeah, 2 Nashville area teams. Vandy kept it close in the past. The 2 previous games, and MTSU coming off some losses, that were technically exhibitions, and they'll want to get back into the win column, especially in this one because it's a super cool stage and circumstances.
Producer Gavin keeping us awake here at the wee hours. We're getting down to the end of this recording now, and for this game there is a ticket entry. You can find those at mtsuicehockey.com or head to the link in the Instagram bio, MTSU Ice Hockey. I believe they're not too expensive, and your admission will, I believe, support one of the clubs. I mean, getting to go to downtown Nashville, I've been there. Absolutely one of my favorite places on earth. It is right on the boulevard. It is right downtown. I mean, if people get word of this, it would be cool to see people pack the barn in Bridgestone. So fun one on Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Time and 7 p.m. Eastern. So
Chop, chop.
Without further ado, let's get to our final game preview. Chop, chop indeed. Jacksonville and Florida are going to play each other at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena. It's notable about that. It's the home of the Jacksonville Icemen. Head coach Derek Lodermeyer, former player for the ECHL team up there in Jacksonville. Great for both programs. Now, this is a sneaky good game. These are the 1 and 2 teams in ACDC, and Jacksonville has a chance to get the 1 seed. If they can beat Florida in this one, they have a game in hand on the Gators, who only have one more before playoffs against USF, one more that'll count anyway. And Jacksonville has a series left with the Embry-Riddle Eagles. So, stuff to think about, food for thought. And you can catch that on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern up in the northeastern part of Florida. So, boys, we ran through it. Now, I don't mean to put you on the spot because I know we're not great with this. I'm not great with this. I'm a bad host in this regard. So preface with me. I want to know what you guys saw this week as maybe your cool stories. Doesn't even have to be CHS related, hockey or college hockey in general. Like what's a cool thing that you saw this weekend that comes to mind for you?
Well, I saw Jonathan Taves return to Chicago. That was something I've been looking forward to for a long time. For new hockey fans, Jonathan Taves was the captain for over a decade in Chicago, won 3 Stanley Cups, and was more than just a captain. He was a tremendous leader, widely respected across the entire sport of hockey, and just meant so much to the city of Chicago. And it was evident they gave him a standing O that was like 3 to 4 minutes, which doesn't sound like much. And then you watch it and it's like, wow, they've really, this guy really meant a lot. And it meant a lot to me to see that. And yeah, it was a little bittersweet, to see him in a different uniform, but I'm glad to see he got that recognition, and, it was a cool thing for the sport of hockey.
Yeah, and FAU, Florida Southern played each other, but something I found out over the weekend is Hunter Rice and Sam Carrazzo played together in juniors. So after the second game at Lakeland Ice Arena, they did a little jersey swap. Obviously you can't swap jerseys; you got to keep your jersey. But they took a little cool picture, and so it was just cool. There were some stories that maybe I didn't know. Like I said, I went to Boca with the team, so just getting to hear some of the stories from some of the guys and realize that there's a lot more connections. Every time I talk to players, I just learn hockey's so much smaller than what you think.
100%.
Sam Watson, Will Marshall. But yeah, the jersey swap was just probably like the coolest thing. Both teams fought really hard in that series, and for it to just end with a jersey swap, I just thought that was really cool.
And you mentioned it there, Gavin. Will
Well,
Marshall and Sam Watson both went to Culver Military Academy, who posted something about the two players representing CHS over in Europe. So definitely cool.
I want to give a special shout out to Clemson's Amanda Regina for her first ever Clemson goal. Got to wear the paw print chain. I really like that. I hope that's a team tradition. Whoever gets that, I'm a big fan of just everything related to this program. I know, the women's side we don't get as much news about compared to how much we talk about M3 and even M2. But this is one of the coolest rising stories in college hockey. I am ecstatic like you are for this game of the week. I wonder where our friend over at Trailer Park Sports Network will be if he's going to follow this one too. It's our game of the week. It's the Palmetto Cup, South Carolina at Clemson on Saturday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Stay up late for it. I'll be up late. But
It's like
boys,
a UFC card.
let's have ourselves a week.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Right? Maybe Danny's wishes will come true, and we'll see a Donnybrook for the first time
We'll see
a true Donnybrook
baby.
on the women's side.
All right, good episode, fellas. Devin, send us home, baby.
With pleasure. That's what I was looking for there. This has been episode 22 of College Hockey Mouth, a College Hockey South series. Good luck in your games, and we'll talk to you soon.